Chelsea seemed to be entering a new phase after that huge Champions League performance. But the moment they stepped into Elland Road, everything fell apart. And in the middle of all that chaos, one name became the center of attention: Estevão. The kid who'd been treated as one of the jewels of the season had a completely off night, went viral on social media, and ended up becoming the main topic of the manager's press conference right after the match. But what the coach said changed the narrative for a lot of people who were criticizing the Brazilian. Today we're going to break down exactly what happened and why this story runs deeper than it seems. Before we start, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. The night in Leeds started going downhill long before the scoreboard showed any danger. Chelsea arrived confident, riding the momentum of a convincing Champions League performance. But the Premier League is like that. Just when you think you're in control, someone yanks you back to reality. And this time, the one who felt it the most was Estevão. The youngster had been one of the team's brightest spots, but he walked into a completely different environment at Elland Road. From the opening minutes, it was clear Leeds had a specific plan for him. Gabriel Gudmundsson stuck to the Brazilian like a basketball defender. Every time Estevão touched the ball on the right side, the stands reacted. Boos, taunts, pressure, and it got to him. The attempted flick that went viral online was the turning point. He tries to pop the ball up for a sombrero. The move doesn't work, and Leeds takes over. In the heat of the moment, a hard foul comes, and then the yellow card that would change the entire trajectory of the match. From that point on, the game stopped being technical and turned psychological. Estevão couldn't find himself again. Every lost duel seemed to fuel his frustration, and every failed run reinforced the feeling that the night was slipping away. On the touchline, Maresca watched closely. The entire team was underperforming, but the kid stood out because of how much the game was throwing him off emotionally. Meanwhile, Leeds grew into the match. They pressed, won second balls, controlled the tempo. Chelsea's collective performance wasn't helping, and Estevão ended up trapped in an emotional space that's tough to manage. It felt like he was facing his first real test of mental resilience in the Premier League. Before halftime, Maresca already seemed to have made up his mind. And it wasn't a tactical decision. It was about protecting a player who clearly couldn't filter the hostility of the game. The yellow card mattered, sure, but his behavior afterward showed that keeping him on the field could have been risky. When the teams came back out for the second half, the big question among fans was about Estevão. And then came the confirmation. Maresca left him in the locker room. It didn't surprise anyone who had watched the first half closely. It was obvious he was playing on an emotional tightrope. According to the manager, the substitution wasn't a punishment, but a precaution. At just 18 years old, carrying a yellow card in a physically intense match, the chance of another foul changing the story of the game was very real. And as Estevão came off, Pedro Neto came on. And he came on well. Within minutes, he scored to pull one back and reignite Chelsea's hopes. But that spark didn't last. Leeds kept pushing, speeding up the game, and taking advantage of defensive mistakes. Plays that should have been simple turned into chances for the home side. And that's how the third goal came, practically sealing the defeat and leaving Maresca with that look of someone who knew exactly what had gone wrong. Outside the pitch, while the game unfolded, the online debate about Estevão gained steam. Clips of the foul spread everywhere. Fans calling for a red card, foreign pundits analyzing the Brazilian's behavior and questioning whether that kind of attitude fits the Premier League's competitive level. For many, it wasn't just a technical mistake, it was a cultural shock. His adaptation to the pace and refereeing of English football was being tested publicly, in real time. But the post-match press conference brought an important counterpoint. Maresca didn't place the blame solely on the youngster. In fact, he shut down the idea of individual responsibility by saying, "No one was at their best today." He was tough on the whole team, yet protective of the kid. That response reveals a lot about how the manager views Estevão, a player still developing, who will make mistakes, lose his composure, but has huge room to grow. The message was clear. The night in Leeds doesn't define Estevão, but it teaches him. The match exposed limitations but also showed how emotionally dependent Chelsea is on its young players. And with little time before the next fixture, the challenge isn't just correcting tactical errors, it's rebuilding the squad's confidence, especially his. In the end, what looked like just a yellow card and an off performance was actually a lesson in adaptation, maturity, and pressure. And that's going to matter in the next matches. The big question now is how Estevão will respond when he steps onto the pitch again. In the end, the loss in Leeds made one thing clear. Some nights teach more than they deliver results. For Estevão, it was the kind of game that leaves a mark, one that demands maturity, a shift in attitude, and above all, adaptation to the Premier League's rhythm. And now the question is, will this episode become fuel for him to come back stronger? Or is it a warning sign about how much he still needs to grow to handle this environment? I want to know what you think. Did Maresca make the right call by taking him off at halftime? Or should he have backed the kid even with the risk involved? Let me know in the comments. And before you go, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos.